Hello everyone, good morning. I'm Francis from Hong Kong. Before my presentation, I would like to have I would like to excuse in advance because I was a Chinese language teacher in Hong Kong and I haven't used English for a long time. So I would try my best to make my presentation clearly. So I'm a little bit nervous because it is my first time to use English in a public speech. Okay, let me start. I'm going to share the notion of forgiveness in Buddhism. And the current protest for democracy and people's rights in Hong Kong will be used as the context. Forgiveness in Buddhist tradition is an act of spiritual practice and self-transformation. It combines two factors, compassion and tolerance. His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, the basic level of forgiveness is not to develop anger or resentment towards a person. He remarks that it is understandable to have anger towards the sin or the action. However, we have to make a distinction between the action and the person. Buddhism's aims are soteriological. We ought to oppose the sin, but we can seek justice without anger or hatred towards a person. The high level of forgiveness is to preserve compassion and concern. As a human being, the person of wrongdoing still deserves our compassion and respect. Only that can change the wrongdoer's attitude and make peace among people. In Buddhist practice, forgiveness is one of the 6 transcendental perfections. In Hong Kong, the mass protest began in June as opposition to an extradition bill that would have allowed people to be sent from Hong Kong to China to face trial. Due to the government's leaders' indifference and arrogance, the increasing police brutality, the movement now has been transformed into a civil disobedience campaign. Aside from the withdrawal of the extradition bill and inquiry of police brutality, protesters are asking for promised universal suffrage. Millions of protesters have taken to the streets where many young people have prepared to sacrifice. They are striving to protect Hong Kong's autonomy, rights, and freedoms. All these have been guaranteed by the Sino-British Joint Declaration and stated in the Basic Law of Hong Kong. The protesters, especially the young people, are exerting their utmost efforts to preserve Hong Kong's identity to avoid Hong Kong becoming just another Communist Party-run Chinese city. Hong Kong people are fighting against an authoritarian regime to protect themselves. Time magazine described this protest movement as an all-out battle for the soul of Hong Kong. Contrary to the virtue of forgiveness, in Buddhism, greed, hatred, and delusion are the 3 unwholesome roots of suffering. To the Chinese government, the protest in Hong Kong is a challenge against the authority and a threat of its rule. They respond by spreading hate speech and fanning public anger towards Hong Kong protesters. The Chinese government described the protest as a color revolution, showing signs of terrorism. Mainland media labeled the young protesters separatists of Hong Kong independence, violent mobs, criminals, and garbage youth. In the city, after a 3-month-long protest, Hong Kong's chief executive eventually announced to withdraw the extradition bill, but she still refused to accept other demands and condemned the protesters as rioters and having no stake in the society. The Hong Kong police called the young protesters cockroaches. This is a form of dehumanizing languages used in the tragic events of Second World War and the Rwandan genocide. They are preoccupied by hatred and view protesters as oppressed enemies. Buddha looks. If a Bodhisattva gets angry with other Bodhisattvas, he opens the door of 100 million hindrances. The anger towards Hong Kong protesters has developed violence and terror. In Sydney, London, Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, and other cities worldwide, supporters of Hong Kong democracy have been harassed and bullied by pro-China immigrants and students. In Hong Kong, police have fired tear gas, bullets, and pepper ball into crowds in the streets and subway stations. Protesters and innocent bystanders have also faced violence from groups of thugs who allegedly collaborate with the government. Almost 1,500 people have already been arrested. The youngest is just 12 years old. Many detained protesters have been tortured, resulting in serious bone fractures, while female protesters were sexually violent. Some protesters are still missing and believed to be beaten to death by police. Bystanders were beaten and then arrested just because of querying police action and asking police to follow their conscience. The Human Rights Office of the United Nations condemned the Hong Kong police of deploying excessive force and creating a considerable risk of death and serious injury. The regime also used right terror to scare the people of Hong Kong. Under the pressure of the Beijing government, Cathay Pacific, the Hong Kong-based airline, had to fire several pilots, crew members, and ground workers who had taken part in the protest. The union head of the Cathay Dragon, another Hong Kong airline, has been fired just for supporting the protest on her Facebook page. A number of international accounting firms have issued a warning to their personnel about social media posts and conversation supporting the protest. After attack by the state media, the subway company in Hong Kong shut down stops near protest areas. Pro-Beijing political figures urge parents and students to complain against teachers and principals whom have made supporting speech to the support to the protest in school. Pro-democracy activists and lawmakers have been arrested in citywide raids. Young people were interrogated and detained simply due to wearing red clothes and a medical mask. While police patrol outside schools and search students when school opened last week, Hong Kong has simply become a police state. The Dalai Lama remarks, anger breeds more negativity. In Hong Kong's case, anger is one of the roots of escalating conflicts and oppressions. In Buddhist tradition, forgiveness can imbue divine-like qualities. Young people protesting in Hong Kong are fighting for a just and fair society. They are striving to protect themselves and the next generation, and to preserve the uniqueness and the distinct identity of Hong Kong. They love Hong Kong and show compassion and concern. During the demonstration, young people provide water and masks to participants, took care of seniors, and clear ways for vehicles, ambulance, and fire engines. Groups of young people clean the city by picking up rubbish left behind by demonstrators and washing subway stations after police tear gas attack. Instead of taking revenge on government officials and police, young protesters has expressed their determination and the sacrifice they were prepared to make to get the government to listen to the people. At least 8 people have committed suicide, leaving behind notes asking the government to accept people's demands. Many young people at the front line of the movement are carrying with their last will and testament. At this point, it is sad to say that Hong Kong young people's action align with Dalai Lama's work to achieve ultimate happiness. How to do this? By cultivating compassion, by cultivating altruism. Buddhists believe that the act of forgiveness changes relationships. Young people in Hong Kong have shouldered the responsibility of their time. They have a sense of mission and calling. Meanwhile, they have shown their ability to adjust and self-correct. The young protesters have learned and evaluate after every event. They apologize to residents and travelers for the inconvenience and turbulence caused by the various forms of civil disobedience. Residents welcome home young protesters returning from the front lines of confrontation against police as heroes. Last Sunday, thousands of protesters retreated from Hong Kong International Airport after the only subway line of the island was suspended. They walked for about 5 hours, 20 kilometers, to evade the riot police. On hearing the news of the protesters' daring escape, over 5,000 vehicles voluntarily arrived at the far end of the island to transport the protesters to safety. The protest has due support not only from the local Hong Kong people, but also worldwide. The G7 leaders backed Hong Kong's autonomy in a joint statement. The US Parliament is going to pass the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act. Aligning with the Time magazine, another newspaper, Christian Today, said, Hong Kong is the new front line in the battle for freedom against tyranny and repression, and every freedom-loving person and government must stand with Hong Kong people. In Buddhism, forgiveness is about returning to the human qualities in our relationships, embracing the universal values of freedom, democracy, justice, and human rights. Hong Kong people are united in the protest and connect with people of the free world. Buddha is a peacemaker who said, hate never yet dispelled hate. Only love dispels hate. It is hoped that the love of Hong Kong people can dispel hate and bring peace and reconciliation to Hong Kong. Thank you.